welcome back to our kitchen. I was videoing all of my cooking for a little bit and then I stopped because there were some people who were being jerks about my cats being on the counter and my hair not being up and all that stuff. But I said, no, those jerks don't get to ruin this. So I am going to show you my decently quick and easy. This is something that I bought specifically for this cooking. It's a tripod that suctions, and it doesn't suction enough, like, so it falls. So can't use this. But yeah, so tonight we're going to be making my mom's Mexican rice. We already have steak prepped, like fajita steak prepped. So all I have to do is warm it up. And then I'm also gonna be making fresh tortillas. So let me bring you along with me on that journey. Let's go. Okay, I start by getting all my ingredients out, and I start with the rice and the tortillas first because the rice is gonna take a few minutes to brown, and then we'll have to also boil it and cover it and all these things. The tortillas are gonna have to rest for about 15 to 30 minutes, and then after that we'll have to shape them, let them rest again. So this dinner isn't insanely quick, but it's not too terribly long either. So I'm gonna go ahead and start on the rice and start on the tortillas. So starting with the rice, we're going to do 1 cup of rice. That works for us. Ellie likes the rice more than I do. And I definitely don't eat as... Are you yesing because I'm making rice?
Yeah.
So I've got my little rice saucepan here. And I'm going to pour... I'll put it right here. It's not hot yet. Pour 1 cup in there. We're going to go a little over 1 cup just because things are going to fall out. 1 cup of rice, and then we are going to put half a stick of butter in there. We're not going to add the water yet because we need to brown the rice first. That's key, very important. So I've got unsalted butter here. Let me grab a knife. Okay. Got my knife, and I am going to cut half a stick, so 4 tablespoons. And then I just drop it in my rice, and then we're gonna put it on the heat and constantly stir so the rice doesn't burn, but it browns, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Also, what I do to start my tortillas, because there's a step that I learned last time I made them with this specific recipe, they have you melt water and butter together. Well, they have you melt butter in water. I think it's best to start that, so I've had it melting in the microwave. And then while I'm doing all my dry ingredients and all of this, it's gonna cool, so it won't burn when I go in there with my hands to mess around with it, because I don't use a whisk. I use my hands for tortillas. So let's get into it. Okay, so like I said, I already took my butter and my water and melted it together. I'll give it a stir in just a minute. But for now, we're gonna start with all-purpose flour. So you're gonna do for about, I'd say this makes like 8 tortillas, depending on how you roll them out. If you roll them small or bigger. We're gonna do 3 cups of all-purpose flour. I have more, I promise. Yeah, that's a whole cup right there. Okay, that's 1. Now I gotta open my other container. Okay, let's go. Yeah, it's still, okay, we'll probably end up going a little bit over, but it's okay. You can always fix things if they're a little too dry or a little too wet. You can always add more wet ingredients or dry ingredients if you need to. That's 2. And this is, I know what you're thinking, you're getting more in there than necessary. That's why I don't do like a heaping cup. And 3. Okay. Now we're gonna close that up. Keep things as organized as possible. Okay, now we're taking our salt and we're gonna do 1.5 teaspoons of salt. So I've got 1 teaspoon here, so I'm gonna go just 1 and then a half. And then after our salt, there we go, we do 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. So I do it to a full teaspoon and then I half it. But it's not an exact science, so it's okay. Okay, don't mind if you hear talking in the background. Ellie's on the microphone with some of his friends, so if you hear anything, don't mind it. But this is what it's looking like so far. This is not browned yet. If you've never browned rice, I hadn't before until my mom showed me this recipe about a month or two ago, or I was interested in learning it actually, but all the butter has melted now, and now we're just keeping it moving and browning it so it doesn't burn. The key is don't burn it. It should only take, once everything's melted and heated up, I think my mom says it takes like 2 or 3 minutes, so you have to keep a close eye on it. And as for the tortillas over here, I whisked together my dry ingredients. This is still very hot, and I use my hands because that's what the recipe, the video I watched recommended, and I did this last time and didn't let it cool down enough, and I burnt my hands the entire time I did it. So we're gonna let this cool down a little bit more. Okay, I've got it browned to where I like it. I've pulled like the butter back and I could see what it looks like. So most of the pieces are brown, and so that's what I like, not too brown, just a little bit tinted yellow. Let's move on to the next step. Okay, now we're gonna add 2 cups of water. I'm gonna add warmer water.
If hardly cleansing the game, then we change this probably.
Okay. Here, I'm gonna add 1 cup of water. 2 cups of water. Then we're going to season it. Okay, so some onion powder, measure with your heart. Some garlic powder. I use all of it. And then we've got tomato bouillon chicken. And my mom says do like a spoonful of it. So grab a spoon. That's like half. Add a little bit more. And then you stir it all together. You bring it to a boil. And then we'll move on. This is what it should be looking like, just in case you were wondering. I'm somebody that likes to know what things should look like after you've added all the ingredients. So this is what you should be kind of looking like. This is what adds the color and of course the taste, but that's what makes it that color. Okay, back to the tortillas. So what we're gonna do, this is kind of cool now, it's still a little hot. We're only gonna add a little bit at a time. We're gonna do 2 drop-ins. So we're gonna add about 1/4 of it. I added half. And then I'm using my hands. My hands are washed because apparently people think I don't wash my hands off camera. And you're just going to start slowly mixing it together. The consistency you should be getting, I'll show you in a minute, is like grainy, kind of sandy. So let me get there first. And I think for some reason that's really important that that's the texture you get first in this recipe anyways. I've made tortillas with a different recipe before and I had to use yeast, but this recipe doesn't call for yeast, so give me just 1 second here to get this grainy for you. Okay, this is the grainy texture you want, the kind of sandiness, and then you just add the rest in and work it and knead it until it's soft and a good dough ball. I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so my rice is done. My dough was very sticky and I forgot to film what I did with my rice. So after it boils, you cover it, bring it down to a simmer for 20 minutes. I got my dough looking like this. It has set for 30 minutes and now I'm going to make my dough balls. Okay, and I just take my tortillas and I make a dough ball. I cut out 8 little triangles and I want them all to measure at about 98 to 100 each, and so I'll just kind of pull from each one and try to make them a little bit heavier until I get all of my dough balls the way I want them to, essentially. Okay, the dough balls are going to sit for about 15 minutes, and while that's going, I have got the prepped meat already on warming up, and it is sitting in lemon juice because we like lemon in our meat, so let's go. Okay, this is a good example of one. I just put it in and we're gonna see how long it takes. You should see it start to kind of bubble up and rise. I see it rising right there. Okay, meat is done. and I start rolling out the balls of tortillas. This pan is not hot yet, but it is getting hot. So normally once you put the tortilla in the pan, it only takes like a minute maybe, but I'll show you on like the second one when the pan's already really hot what it's supposed to look like. But yeah, I can already feel it just like that. My hands are clean. I can feel that it's cooking underneath, and I'll check it in just a minute, but I'll show you a better one, the best example. The first one is always the worst in my opinion. Okay, do you see the bubbles that have kind of started? It's gonna start kind of inflating. This is a dry pan, so I've had different experiences doing it with a dry pan or with an oiled pan or buttered pan. Look at that. It's starting to bubble up. We'll just let it keep cooking and then we'll flip it. And that is dinner all assembled. It's not pretty, but we're not trying to make things pretty. But these homemade tortillas are phenomenal. Rice is great. It took a while, but it's so worth it. I hope you enjoyed. Bye, friends.